Today was the big day. All the stressful stages of this window have been leading to this point. Today I find out if all my joinery has worked out or not. I start the day successfully avoiding that main task for another hour by thicknessing and finishing the curved beads and the curved rain drips from yesterday. Honestly though, this is a better way to do it before the glue up, as I can freely use the frame as a guide for thicknessing the pieces. So I clamp the piece to a form, which in this case is either my frame or the sash, and then I use a stubby flush trim bit to flatten one face. But I use the frame as a guide, which is definitely ill-advised. I think the reason people would advise against this is because if something goes wrong, you can damage your final piece. However, if nothing goes wrong, you've saved yourself a lot of time making custom forms that you're only going to use once, then have to disassemble. So I will leave it at that. I'm sure one day I will mess up a frame and then strongly consider making custom forms for bent laminations and bead thicknessing. Then I turn the bead over and clamp it back onto the form. This time when clamping, I need to be completely accurate. So I measure how far the flattened face is from the edge of the form, on both sides, and to be sure in the middle also. If the distance is equal in all three dimensions, then I firmly clamp the bead to the form and I set my depth stop, assuming it's not too deep to go all the way in one go. Now, sapelli, I've noticed, likes to splinter and crack, so I'm extra careful on my first pass. I kind of skip along the open edge, taking off only a few millimeters to begin with, before going for the complete flat face. The cracks come back to haunt me later in the video though, while trying to shape a rain drip. For now, it's the big moment, gluing the frame. This part of the day has been on my mind a lot recently. Since I woke up this morning, it's been distracting me and now it's making me sweat. Looking through the footage, I literally only have 2 clips from the whole glue up, so I guess I was 100% focused on doing that and filming just took a back seat. In the end, I carefully glued all the necessary faces and then I think I hit it just really hard into place. I knew it was going to go in, so I wasn't going to be tickling it this time as I had in previous assemblies. Anyway, it all happened really quickly and without much drama, aside from the mental doubts trying to trip me up. Afterwards, it was a huge relief, and hopefully next time I have a big glue up, I can remember just to relax and stop overthinking it so much. I actually found that singing whilst doing the glue up was a massive help. That way I was 100% focused on what was in front of me rather than what was on my mind. When it was dry, I filled the gaps and moved on to the most wonderful and satisfying part of the day, trimming and sanding the window to a flat and finished state. I can't describe how good this feeling is to see the window emerge from a gluey mess into a finished piece at this point. All the stress of the cutting and gluing just disappears and the finished window emerges. I guess I was feeling a bit happy and confident at this point because I just decided to jump right into the beads. I hadn't planned to do them this way today, but figured, hey, why not? I felt like I could potentially finish all the main parts of this window today if I just carried on. So I cut the first curved bead, put it into place and used it to mark the straight bead next to it. These are the tightest beads I've ever made, but they actually can't be this tight. Not only do I need to apply varnish still, but this whole window will expand when it reaches its final home by the sea, so I need to leave a bit of space to allow for that. So I keep shaving the beads down until they fit comfortably with no force. Actually, Here is where I could improve the design of this window. It would require some extra planning while making early cuts, so I avoided it this time. But if I make the little side panel windows a lot further forward by making a much shallower recess, then this beading would be optional. And I could offer it as an add-on rather than a necessity for shedding water. But for now it has improved my skills with bent laminations and beading, so actually I've enjoyed it. Now we move on to the part of the day that really made me step back and look at what I was doing with some pride. When I started in construction 10 years ago, I never would have thought I would focus on carpentry for a start, let alone doing curved carpentry, which I've always looked on as one of the most difficult things to learn. But to create these rain drips from scratch and shape them with hand tools was a really satisfying process. But Sapelli was still there trying to ruin my day. I start shaping the larger of the two rain drips so it has a large bevel to direct rain forward away from the window. But as I am cutting it, a large chip comes off. For a moment I think I'm going to need to make another one. But then I realise I can keep going much deeper with this bevel. So I take another pass on the rain drip and the chip is mostly gone. Actually, I can keep going with the belt sander to shape this rain drip further, so in the end I managed to completely remove the damage. This is a recurring problem I find when working with bent laminations. I think it's partly because I'm not clamping or gluing mine hard enough perhaps, so I reach a slightly weaker spot and the router rips a piece out. Luckily in this case it took a part which I eventually could sand away, but otherwise I would have had to start the bent lamination again. Finally I carved a little drip edge into the bottom of the rain drip to make sure it actually does its job. This would have been much easier with a router table and a fine router bit, but I don't have that, so I took the romantic route and hand carved it with my little carving set. And lastly I made the glass forms to take to the glassmaker tomorrow. So this window is in its final stages now. Hit that subscribe bell so you can see how it finishes in the next few days. Thanks for watching.